Welcome to Something to Offer. Today it's going to be a little different. I'm going to share some amazing clips from a wonderful producer from M&N that we just lost recently, Jon Haggins. He also is a producer of Globetrotter TV, an author of 5 books, African American Guide to Travel, Yes I Can, Chasing Wild Ass, Globetrotter, and Just Being Jon. And I'm just going to let myself just open the show from an earlier show I've done with Jon. I had the opportunity of interviewing him 6 times, and we'll see a little bit from 5 of those episodes. And without further ado, it's Jon Haggins, and we remember him well. Something to Offer, the show that goes to the heart of people living their dreams. And we'll meet them in just a moment. My guest today is a man who I really admire. He's got an amazing work ethic. He's the most creative guy I know. He hosts and produces a show called Globetrotter TV. He spends a good deal of his time going all over the world, as you can imagine, trotting the globe, sharing beautiful experiences of countries and cultures and food and art, and he has a pure love for it. He also is an author of many books. The African American Guide to Travel, that might not be the right title. Travel Guide, I was close. Yes I Can, which is a wonderful book about his whole journey and career through the arts. Through life, but I also say that you get to hear about his designing times in his life, like he was a fashion designer and a performer, dancer, everything. And his new book, which is really a great book because it is on travel, it is on life, it is sort of like a culture building, making people aware of the global citizenry of the world.
It's an educational experience.
Yes, it's called Chasing Wild Ass, and he can tell you why it's called that. I know it sounds like it's dirty, but it's really not, except I suppose if the ass you're chasing poops right in front of you, then it might get dirty. But I want to welcome Jon Haggins to the show, and you never know, he might turn this thing around. Jon, I'm so happy you just jumped in. We had a little extra time, and I thought, you've been on the show several times. I admire your show. You come on, I think, still right after me, don't you, on Saturday nights?
Yeah.
And we're both on Channel 56. I'm at 7:30. You're at 8 o'clock.
That's right.
And Jon is just a wealth of knowledge and also encouragement, and your Yes I Can book is amazing because it really helps people, they can cheer up like, okay, I can do this, and yes, I can get out there. Everything's possible. You just got to give yourself a shot.
Anything is possible. All you have to have is a dream.
Exactly. And can I ask you, what is probably the most, you've had so many dreams and goals and you've achieved them all. Did any of them surprise you more than others pursued, or did it just seem like a natural progression?
It was an evolution, evolve. You evolve as opposed to reinventing, because often people will say, you reinvented. You don't really reinvent, you evolve. And one thing, you can always apply what you've learned from a previous part of your life to the next. And that's what, I was just talking to someone today, and we were talking about painting a picture with words. And someone else made a comment, they said, I'm designing with words as opposed to designing clothes. And I thought, that's very interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah, as I talk about this morning, I was on a radio show, which I do on a monthly basis, and I was talking about my trip to Trinidad. Congratulations, 25 years you've been doing this.
Yeah.
This is so exciting.
That's true, and Jon's here, and this is my 25th year, actually. Well, by the time this airs, it will have been 25 years since I did my very first show, which is kind of hard to believe. You do all the time, because you travel to places, and then you really get into the people of the communities of the land and the
There was a roster man, as a matter of fact. I said, oh God, I'm not going to understand a thing he's saying. And then I listened very carefully, and then I really got it. And I thought that's what we have to do. We have to listen to people and allow them to express themselves and then to learn from them, you know. And he was a great sculptor, and he did incredible wood sculptures that are just magnificent museum pieces that are just magnificent.
And I guess when that's, you know, sometimes like you and I do a certain, you know, kind of work where we're listening to people, but you have to listen with other parts of yourself too. It's like they may not say it the way you understand it, but how their behavior is, or how they, like probably how he does his work even said so much about who he was for you when you looked at the work. Yeah.
Absolutely. But then the point is, when we come back into the studio and we edit it, then we change a little whatever. It's the content of what he's saying, except his conversation goes on forever. So we have to shorten it and make sense of it. And that's an incredible art and a challenge to be able to do that. Yeah.
So Jon, because the title is so provocative, can we please tell them that what Chasing
really
Wild Ass really means?
Oh, sure. Chasing Wild Ass is really a narrative of my travel around the world, and I've included more than 60 destinations. We've covered six continents.
Recipes from the countries and everything is so
and
fabulous.
Colored
And
pictures.
photos.
Title comes about because we were in Gujarat, Kutch Wild Sanctuary in Gujarat in India, and we were chasing jackasses, and they called them ass. So I said, wow, 3 words, I like that. So I'm going to call it Chasing Wild Ass, and someone said the Republicans won't like them. I said, the hell with the Republicans. You know, the whole idea is to, and we've done, you know, Joan Hamburg's show, Chasing Wild on ABC. We've done a number of other shows, and we've done the libraries and so forth, and nobody's objected to the title. So, I mean, I couldn't think of another title that would get one's attention.
Is there another book in Sioux, or is something?
Actually, I started writing, and I said, you know, gee, which countries didn't I include in the last book? And I thought, or destinations. So I started writing, and I thought, wow, this is going to be very interesting, because instead of having 60, maybe I'll do only 30 or 25 in the next, so the book won't be that thick and people can carry it, because it's 2 pounds now. And so I thought, that'll be the next one. And I have lots of photographs, as always, of food and destinations and of people and the experiences. And with writing for the magazine and doing the radio show and doing my own television show, I feel that I'm really like an octopus stretching my wings. And it's really very exciting, because there's always something new and another angle to come about, you know.
Right, and yeah, no rest for the weary. I mean, you're really moving it all the time.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, for the July issue of New York Lifestyle magazine, I've done a story on Portugal.
Nice.
So we talked about the Douro Valley in terms of the wines, the great wines that they have. I talked about Montenegro, which is, they don't have Americans going there because it's the closest point to Spain, as a matter of fact. It's right on the border, and the people there are just so absolutely incredible. We laughed, we had the best time. We were out on the lake, which is actually a reservoir, and we were just having the best food and the best wine, even though they don't make wine, but they drink wine. And the whole thing was just so fantastic. Then we went down to Porto, and then, you know, you've got the beautiful river there, and you know, just the whole city, you know, it's UNESCO World Heritage Site, and we cruised the river on one of the traditional tourist boats, and we toured the city. And I've been there many times, but this was, every time I go to a place, it's always another rock to be turned. You know, you're always discovering something else. It's really magical.
Yeah. Fashion, how was that? That's like such a competitive, wild world, and how was that for you?
It was wonderful. When I came in, I was about 22 years old, so it was really exciting. And Sybil Burton, who just divorced Richard Burton, was a great fan, and we were in her club every night, which was Arthur. And from there, it was Vogue and Bazaar and Cosmo and New York Times and Women's Wear and all these publications. It was funny, when I started out at my apartment, so the doorman would say, "Oh, you must be going to 12ES." And they say, why 12ES? They said, because the way you're dressed. So I had all these ladies coming up to my apartment and whatever, and then from there I moved into an official studio, you know, for work, and it was just a wonderful experience. I loved it. It was very exciting, because every day there was something new going on, and all the different magazines and the shows and everything I was doing, I just loved it. It was just very exciting, and also being very young at the time. And at that time, I was a darling of the fashion editors. And so, you know, you go through metamorphosis, as you say, and you move on to other things. And each time and then from there, I went on to cabaret, and I did that for a while. And then after that, I came back to fashion, did that for a while. And then I decided, actually someone else decided for me, because I was producing shows for the Japanese and the Americans, and then it was the people from Ghana and American, and someone from the airline says, maybe you can get together 12, 13 people. I said, how do I do that? Anyway, I called up a friend from radio, and we did this live broadcast, and we got 450 calls, and 96 people went on the first trip. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. And then what happened was that I said, wow, I'm in the tour operating business. And I did that for about 3 years. And there were these 3 sisters who wanted to sit in the same row, and each one wanted a window. I knew something was wrong.
Right.
So anyway, from there, a friend called and said, what about you doing your own television show? I said, that sounds like a handy idea, because I've been a guest on many national shows like Geraldo and Midday and Today's Show and so forth.
The morning show, a lot of the morning shows.
A lot of those shows. And I thought, to be a, producer of a show, I had no idea what was involved. I'm thinking it's like a guest, you just go on and sit down, like I'm doing now.
Right.
And instead, on the first show, I arrived, no music, no guest. I had to talk for 28 minutes. Imagine me talking for 28 minutes.
You could do that easily, but not on the first time out. Probably you were a little nervous,
no,
right?
No, I wasn't. And I
good.
looked at the tape and I thought, oh my God, I did that. 28 minutes of chatter. I mean, nobody on national television does that. So I learned my lesson. From then on, I got guests. And then I'd book where I'd do a month's worth of shows in an afternoon. I'd have them all lined up.
Right,
like
that's the best, to me, that's the best way to
next,
boom, boom,
felt like
boom,
a hooker.
boom.
Next. And so it was just, it's all about learning. Because when I first came here, I didn't know what a lav was. I thought it was just a clip-on, because I never had to learn any of those things. So from M&N, I've learned an awful lot.
Me too, and
very,
much more to learn too.
Oh, there's lots to learn all the time.
The African American Guide to Travel. Obviously, groups started going out. You needed to come up with some handy guides for people. So share why that's what I was trying to get to.
Well, actually, it was just a travel guide. And then the publisher, he did everything: African American wedding, the African American travel, the African American. I said, what a stupid title, because the book was really for everybody. Anyway, no longer with him. However, the other books have been self-published. And then I've done them the way I want to.
Right.
Yes, I Can I was on a friend's terrace, and she said, what is the book about? I said, it's a Yes, I Can experience. She said, that's what you should call it. I said, okay. So I did that, and then we were...
And that book is amazing, because it really, it's like a very motivational book. I mean, it's great. It's just like you share your journey, but also encourage people to, just keep saying yes to life.
And forget about no.
Right.
Don't use that word. It doesn't exist. And then what happened was that afterwards we were in Gujarat, India, which is on the west side of the west coast. And I met somebody from Gujarat the other day. I couldn't believe it. I said, you're from Gujarat? And it was amazing, because nobody comes from Gujarat. Anyway, in Gujarat, we were in Kutch Wild Sanctuary, and they were chasing jackasses, and they called them ass. So I said, oh, that's a good title for the book, Chasing Wild Ass. Good. And it's rather provocative, but it's not about ass as you think. It's about jackasses, and it was about more than 60 destinations. The book features around the world, and it's all these different experiences, plus aromatic recipes.
Oh yeah, that's what I love. There's recipes in there. There's every country, color photos, and then also a little bit of your personal vibe. And there's just that zest for the adventure of it that you always bring to your writing too. And again, I think it lets people, if they don't get to walk a day in the shoes of other people, if you read those chapters of the countries, you get a sense of the global expression, the global expression, the global, we're global citizens, or we ought to aspire to be global citizens. Even if we don't travel, it's good to know about other people and other cultures.
Well, you know what my slogan is? My world is your world. So remember, get up, get out, and travel.
He's just always such a joy to interview, and he's so positive, and he really encourages human beings to be their best selves. Of several books. The first one was African American Travel Guide. Yes, I Can, about making possibilities happen in your life through his life journey, and that was such an inspiring book to me. He is a motivational speaker. His new book, and don't let the title fool you, Chasing Wild Ass, inspires folks to get up and get out and travel. And it's just a wonderful book on all Jon's joy and journeys of meeting people and really being what I call a very global citizen.
Good to see you.
It's nice to see you. Jon, first family road trip that you took with your family, do you remember?
It was in Florida. It was family, and I was a very small boy, and we went to visit friends and family all over Florida. So we drove. We were always in a car going on weekends. So whether we were going to the country or whether we were going to another city. So it was always, travel has always been a part of my life, and it's been a passion. And I always said that fashion was my first love, but travel has always been my passion. And as an adult, my first international trip was to Brazil. And I loved it.
I ran into a great place, right?
Yeah, I ran into someone on the street that I knew, and they said, there's a trip to Brazil, $365, including the air, the transfer, which I didn't know what that was, hotel, and everything, you know. So I said, where am I going? I don't know, but that's great. I called up 40 friends. We got on the plane. Boom. 9 hours in the air. I thought, is this plane ever coming down? And finally we landed. The most beautiful people I've ever seen. Very fashionable, a language I've never heard before. It was extraordinary, and the experience was incredible. And since we didn't speak the language, which is Portuguese, we would yell out the window, "Hey, Barry!" Or Linda. And that's how we communicated, because we couldn't use the phone.
In this book, there are recipes. So I was wondering, when in your life growing up were you first introduced to foods of other cultures? Because, you know, we live in cities and environments where there's people, we live with other cultures.
I think, well, my New York adult experience was really the international failure.
Yeah, because here you can really...
Yeah, and you can go out on any block and find 20 different nationalities in terms of food. I think the whole experience was going to Brazil, as an example, as a youngster or early 20s, and going and having feijoada, which is their national dish, having other dishes that I've never had before, having caipirinhas, which I love caipirinhas, and you know, it's a Brazilian rum drink. And having all these wonderful things, and then exploring other places, like whether it's Mexico or going to Asia, and you're having long beans and all kinds of incredible things, you know, that just you know, just sort of opens your whole world. And the people are so fantastic, because what happens is that they become your friends. You know, on a recent trip, one of the guests or hosts actually literally cried when we were leaving, because she missed us so much already, because we just had so much fun together, and she was like family, and you bond with these people.
Right, exactly, and that's what it's interesting. I wanted to ask, you know, people and celebrations and joy and being in life and engaged in knowing others. Oh, who did that come from, maybe in your family background?
My granddad.
Your granddad?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's, you know, you really, you know, get engaged with people. For an offering, and when we return, Jon will share a bit of his adventures in living that encourage all of us to find in ourselves things that inspire ourselves daily. So we'll see you in just a moment. Particularly the travel books. It's not just a travel book.
It's an experience of life.
Right. It's life. It's positivity. It's humanity. It's like putting your walking a day in the shoes of another culture, another person, a lot of history. But when you sit down to do that, like, what is your process? You go like, oh, I just want to, I'll write a travel book, but you're not really writing just a travel book. You're writing a life book. And then you're sharing, like, that commonality we all have. We all eat. We all enjoy being around a table. And when you read your books, you kind of feel like you're sitting with somebody, having had a meal, and they're sharing a great story about their trips, or, you know, you're exchanging, like, things I read. I'd lived in those places. I said, oh, Jon really knows, you know. I said, it took me back. It's been like 20 or more years. I said, oh, wow, you know. What was the mindset? How do you sit down and do it? How do you lay out the whole thing? And then we'll you know.
Okay, well, I think initially I talk about the experience. It's really the show being transported on the pages. So it's what we've seen on the television show Globetrotter then becomes literally words in a book. So therefore, you're really sharing the same experience. And it's like someone says, you don't take notes. How do you remember all of this? I said, because it's all visual. I'm a visual person. So and sometimes I write it as I'm on the plane. You know, I write the story, I sort of block it out, and I come back and I put in the details. It all depends, and the feeling that I say to myself, I've got to do 20 pages per day in order to make, you know, up so many pages.
The deadline or whatever.
Yeah, right. And for instance, on this book, The Globetrotter, it took me quite a few months, but the whole process from writing it to the process of having it printed and so forth, it's a 9-month ordeal.
Right, but was this shorter than some of the other books in length of time, or was it longer? Are they all about the same?
About the same, yeah.
Okay, and Yes I Can is a completely different, but it's still a life traveling book.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's an amazing.
It's a memoir.
It's a memoir, but it's also so motivational. I mean, it could help anybody. There's something that could help everybody keep going for what the things they want, or if they have to shift their life because, you know, things change, the willingness to, you know, take different leaps and things like that.
And I think age has nothing to do with anything. It has to do with your spirit.
Right.
And if you have, if you're inspired, and you should have a passion. So, you know, people retire. Why? You know, the point is you should have a passion to do something else. You may retire from whatever you're doing, but there has to be another part of your life that blossoms like a flower. It just comes up and it becomes the most beautiful thing in life. And I think if everyone has an inspiration and a passion, life goes on forever.
Right. I always had a great time with Jon every time we were together. So generous with his time. Isn't an important quality or tool to pack or navigate in your life's journey, in your opinion, for a human being to have, like possess in their tool house for going through life? It's the biggest trip.
Okay, sense of humor to start with.
Okay, great.
So you can laugh with other people, don't laugh at them, and then share a sense of humor. I think that's the best part. And everyone's very light on their feet, and it's just a wonderful feeling.
Actually, do you mind if I read the dedication of your book?
Go right
okay,
ahead.
thank you. This is just kind of hot off the presses, folks. So I've read parts of the book, but I have not gotten to read every single page. But the dedication is beautiful, and every chapter is like a book in itself. Just Being Jon is a lovingly dedicated to my mother, Willie Mae Walker Haagins. Man, I should have practiced this. For her patience, love, friendship, and support throughout the years. Through her struggles, perseverance, and determination, she remained strong. She was the root, trunk, branch of the tree. I was only a leaf. And my granddad, Richard Walker, who inspired me during my early years, he told me that anything is possible. All you have to have is a dream. Mother and granddad were my angels. They allowed me to spread my wings. I would also like to honor the countless, faceless, unknown forefathers and foremothers who endured and stood strong. Just Being Jon is also lovingly dedicated to Catherine Stevens, Laurel Van Horn, and Lorraine Curry, who believed in me, in my dream, and inspired me throughout my adult years. Sorry, I didn't read that as nicely as I would have liked to, but they get it. They get it. They get it. So, Jon, don't want it to fall over. It feels like it's going to fall over. You can adjust it again. It's interesting because the whole book is about the foundations, the people who laid the foundations before us, the roots, the trees. So they truly shape, your granddad, your mom, shaped the trajectory of you living your dream and achieving your goals, which might look to some people like if they say, oh, Jon Haggins, he lives like this magical life. Everything just happens to him. But you have to work for it all.
There's a foundation.
Really get the adventure out of life with everything, like and this appreciation for the moment. You always have appreciation for the moment and
Live
the opportunity.
in the moment is what I always tell even the videographer. Live in the moment. You must be there, as opposed to it's not going to happen later. It's right now. Capture the moment.
Right. And I want to ask you, how can a person flip that script in their head if there's someone who doesn't do that, or they've hit a slump. You know how some people live in their history or live in their past, or, oh, I mean, sometimes I'm like, oh, you should have done that. Well, that moment's gone, you know, whatever. I'm not always great at that, you know, but what's a good technique, or what would you coach them to if they're stuck in some conversation about that can't or whatever? What would you?
Change the dial. That's basically what they have to do. They have to really rethink about their lives and how they can really be present in the moment.
Right.
Which I think is so important. I know there's someone on Facebook who keeps putting up pictures from the 60s, and I'm thinking, what happened to their life now? What's going on now? As opposed to pictures from the past.
Right. I mean, it's nice to reflect on that with your friends sometime about a party, but you don't want to keep it going.
This is all, you know, the past. Deal with the moment that you're living now, and to be grateful. I am so grateful every day I wake up and the sun is out and I think, oh my God, this is fantastic, another day. Because we're not promised. We're here for, live in the moment, and we are here for a small amount of time, as we are just that little leaf that drops to the floor and it's over. And we have to enjoy every moment.
Right, exactly. It will be missed.